So, good morning, Firstly, thank you to CBRE for having me along today. Johnson Controls are one of the 3 strategic partners, which was on Chris's slide earlier. So we're in a very privileged position. And this morning, I've been asked to kind of talk to you a little bit about some of the changes in the marketplace and how that influences Johnson Controls' behaviours with CBRE and also CBRE's end users as well. So try and keep it fairly high level, but I'm going to go over who are Johnson Controls, what do they do, why do they do it, and then what influences our behaviours and how we interact with CBRE. So Johnson Controls started back in 1883 when Warren Johnson invented the first electric thermostat. Since then, a multitude of mergers, acquisitions, divestitures has led to the organisation described behind me today. The most recent high-profile merger was with Tyco back in 2016. And on the back of that, a new headquarter building was set up in Cork in Ireland. So that building is a proof of concept smart building with lots of wacky technology in it. And there's a couple of examples of those technologies which I'll come on to in just a moment's time. So what do we do? Well, Johnson Controls operates in kind of 6 key markets, from building controls, HVAC, fire and security, integrated solutions, and also energy and power. There'll probably be some brands up there that you do recognise and also some that you probably don't. So the range is quite massive. So Sensormatic is a retail security tagging company that put the tags in clothes in your shops. Varta is a battery manufacturer, and if you've been to B&Q lately, the batteries by the till are Varta now. And they also make 30% of the world's battery supply, which is quite an impressive stat. But the reason why we do this is to have a solution to take to market whereby we have hard services which were previously disparate in the market that we can connect together and create interesting connections and interaction between systems and suck data from that and use it to give our customers more actionable insights. And that's quite an interesting theme when we talk about some of the market trends which influence the behaviours of Johnson Controls in building this portfolio. So, market trends. There are lots of things which influence a business's behaviours. The stock market, for example, but there are 3 key themes which have influenced our portfolio, our technology, and our research and development. One is the rise in digitalisation, climate change, and the regulations that puts upon us as manufacturers, and also CBRE and your compliance and what you have to deliver for your client base, and also the rise in remote connectivity. More and more remote working, more and more remote analytics. People are doing work from central stations. So it creates a really interesting mix of factors as to what we need to do to be relevant and competitive in the marketplace. And the best example of this is smart buildings. So that's not a spelling mistake. Co-opetition is a concept which is coming through from the smart building world, in that you can only create a smart building if you cooperate in a competitive manner. There is no single supplier on the market that can do everything end to end. The tech vendors, Amazon Web Services, they can create a platform for an Internet of Things to build a smart building, but they don't have any incumbency within a building in hard services. The startups may have the great ideas around enabling you to order your coffee from the tube, but they don't have the end user relationships that the likes of CBRE do. So the only way in which you can offer a smart building and a smart solution is for companies that were previously in competition to be more open, provide open protocols, enable data to be accessed to be able to work together. So to put that into a case study, the smart building that Johnson Controls have in Cork, this is a network topography, won't go into it in too much detail, but in order to make the building smart, we had to use an IoT platform, Microsoft Azure. We had to create a system which could straddle both the landlord and the tenant network. We had to be able to interface with third-party open API information, so things such as the local transport network. We had to connect to non-building systems such as cashless vending and catering. And all of this together, when we connect it, enables us to make interesting interactions between data sources and then ultimately make a building smart. So 2 examples of where we've done that. One is around creating a smart catering system. So by taking the access controls data and understanding who's in the building, we can then overlay that on the amount of cashless transactions, and we can then give that to our catering team to then forecast how many meals they're going to sell. So we can trend, what happens on the Friday before a bank holiday, how many people are actually buying lunch, and how much food do we need to prepare. And that in itself creates a whole load of opportunities for us. Being able to have a waste management strategy, it means that you can have a proactive tool for managing the health of your employees, because you can track what they're purchasing. One of the concepts that they're looking at the moment is around using data from Strava and Garmin and looking at whether or not you can buy more calories than you've burnt, but I think that's a step too far. But it's an interesting concept, data which can create actionable insights. The second one, which I'll touch on briefly, is using open information in the marketplace and packaging it in a way which is easy to digest for the user of the building. This is what we call the transport hub. So it's a city centre location, and what we've done is gather together bus information, train information, the nearest Boris bike racks, the nearest car park, and put it in an app so that you can, on your way into work, what's the quickest way in, how am I going to get there, and how am I going to get out quickly. But these are some of the things that we need to do if we're being smart in the smart marketplace. So the second market trend I introduced was around climate change. And to explore this, I've looked at refrigeration. So the refrigeration market is constantly changing. And the EU is trying to clamp down on high global warming potential refrigerants. And next year, they are reducing the amount of high global warming potential refrigerants that you can sell to market by 37%. As a result, the price of R134A and 407C, some of these high GWP refrigerants, is just going up and up and up, 30% month on month. And the market as a whole has been really, really slow to react to this impending challenge. And what would have been fairly cheap to replace refrigerant in the past, in 18 months' time, is going to become massively cost prohibitive. So this creates an opportunity for the projects people in the room to actually sell some projects into their client base, but also for us as manufacturers to try and come up with some technologies and solutions to overcome this challenge. So these little graphics at the bottom are what's used to try and come up with a score for global warming potential. And you can see that R22, which has been phased out, is at 2000. R410A, which is considered to be a good refrigerant, is at around the 2000 mark. A replacement for that, R32, is down at 675, so it's a third. But as we start to explore some of the new refrigerants, there are other challenges. Propane, for example, isn't particularly safe. So there are costs and benefits to all of this. Some of the opportunities which it provides, though, are quite broad. From risk management strategies, you can sell mobile gas recovery units to put on your site. So if you've got a leak, you can capture as much of it as you can before it all disappears off and reduce your cost impact. You could look at putting a network of sensors on your machine to make sure that you can have an early intervention and prevent your leakage where possible. You can look at doing a straight swap with a new generation refrigerant to replace an old one, or you can look at a new machine. But this is something we need to be conscious of all the time. If we leave our customers and don't tell them about the impact of the reduction in the supply of these refrigerants, there'll be a point in the future when all of their machines simply will be unserviceable. So the final theme I introduced was remote connectivity, and this kind of neatly ties into the previous slide as well. One of the risk reduction strategies which Johnson Controls have done for the existing portfolio of chillers in the marketplace is looking at how can you reduce risk from connecting into machines in the field. And by simply taking the data from that chiller, firing it into the cloud, running some powerful algorithms over it, we can look for opportunities for energy saving, operational gains, leaks, if that's important, but also around the total cost of ownership, we can reduce the amount of cost that an end user faces as well. So we've connected 3,000 chillers, and the data which we've been able to generate from this is quite impressive. 43% reduction in unplanned equipment downtime, 66% reduction in unplanned repairs, a 65% reduction in the mean time to repair, and over 12 months of having your chillers connected on site, the average amount of call-outs is reduced as well, from 1.7 down to 0.97. This summer, when we do our year 2 analytics, the hypothesis is that that's going to drop down again. But it's an interesting way in which you can solve the problems. It doesn't have to be expensive. It shows that you're being conscientious, but also as well, making sure that we're keeping our finger on the pulse as to what's going on in the market from remote connectivity, climate change, and the rise in digitalization. So, in summary, try to keep it fairly high level, but the ability to be open, connect with other systems, keep the customer at the forefront of what you do, and working together. So think opportunities like today, when we get to work closely with our partners, like CBRE, are really, really important.